All right, again. Hello, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. Don and I are reminiscing. Excuse us. Anybody else have any games that are worthy of not worthy or not worthy of mentioning? Anybody working anywhere? Matt Bach, anywhere? Do you have any games this weekend?
Yeah, I got to go to Dubuque on Wednesday.
Ah, okay. Looking for who do they have?
Beloit.
I haven't seen Beloit, nor have I seen Dubuque, but I heard Dubuque is putting it together. Who are you with? Anybody else work today, yesterday? Any practices, any illegal WIA or legal practices or scrimmages?
Doesn't ever happen.
No, they got to practice there. Everything's legal now. All right, my friends. Welcome. We are going to go ahead and start. Same thing as usual, agenda, welcome, and our goal for this evening. Our goal, you're going to improve the ability to see fouls. How do we do that? By opening our eyes and changing our field of vision. And we're going to talk a little bit about rules. There's some like stump the referee questions. I've had some, these are ones that I've had direct experience with and were at my games. And I was like, did we get this right? So we'll talk about that. And this is our last one. Games start this weekend or this week. I want to wish you luck. I hope you feel prepared. If not, then let me know what I can do to better support you. Welcome. Some of you may have figured out that I like reading a lot of Stoic philosophers. And so Marcus Aurelius, if you saw the movie Gladiator, he was portrayed in the movie Gladiator. And this is adapted because he didn't really meet coaches. But he said, today I will meet coaches that are meddling, ungrateful, and misinformed. Players will be malicious and aggressive. Yet I cannot be harmed by any of them, as none will infect me with their wrong. How can this maxim be applied to your officiating? I have yet to put the survey up. Let me go ahead and do that now, please. Where'd it go?
What's the Oscar?
Sorry about this. I had it up. I had no survey up. I'm almost there. So again,
Steve, while you're struggling with that,
go ahead.
Could Don give the spiel on paying dues? Because I've got it from the youth and high school guys on how to do that. So
go ahead. Don, you're up.
Yeah, if you go to the website that I've put in all the chats here, WILOA.org.
Put it up again.
Payments. I'll put it up again. I'm finding it right now. You can pay that way through Venmo or PayPal, or my address is on there and you can send a check. And after this meeting, I was going to have Christian send out a list through Arbiter to everybody. And actually, Randy, I was going to email you and Jeremy and see if I could get a list of all the youth officials, so I could put them on the list and just send everybody out a list in an email and say who's paid and who hasn't paid. Still, a lot of guys haven't paid. The link there in the meeting chat. $25 for a youth, $50 for an adult. If you pay with PayPal, there's a little service charge, just to get a little extra there. And if you send me a check, just shoot me a questions.
You cut out at the end.
Feel free to ask them. If anyone has any questions.
I'll finish for him. It is due the 15th, which is Wednesday. Any questions, reach out to anyone, Don, myself, Christian, any member of the board, and we can help straighten that forward. And then if you guys don't get your NFHS test done as well, you guys will not be getting any assignments.
That too, and there's a $10 if it's not
Again,
paid by the
Don, you
15th.
cut out.
Yeah,
Oh.
Can you
I think
repeat that, please?
it's that
There's-
creepy Santa behind him.
Maybe there's a $10 late if it's not paid by the 15th.
Yeah, $10 late fee.
All right, my friends, I put the link to the survey that we're going to work on tonight in the chat. Marcus Aurelius said, today I will meet coaches that are meddling, ungrateful, and misinformed. The Northland coach had no idea that head contact was a thing. And players will be malicious and aggressive, as evidenced by the Marion player number 13, who whacked a couple of kids in the head. And I cannot be harmed by any of them, as none will infect me with their wrong. My question is, how can you use this maximum to improve your officiating?
I just removed it and I'm gonna redo it.
So it's 7:06. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to respond. How can Marcus Aurelius better prepare you for our games? Randy, is he a signer? Do we report, Tim has a question in the chat. Do we report our rules exam results to anyone, or will someone gather them from USA Lacrosse? How do we do that from the assigner's perspective?
You can always send it to your assigner. That's the fastest way, but US Lacrosse will put it in into Arbiter. So
let's see. Who can help me with this one? Mark Jameson. How can Marcus Aurelius help you? I cannot be harmed to any of them. You're one of my most low-key guys that I work with, and I'm thankful for that.
I think that I think it has to do with you just look, that's their issue, not our issue. If you've got an official who is incorrect, that's his problem, not our problem. If you have a player who's losing their mind, it's their problem. And if you have a player that's making mind, make it the coach's problem, right? But
Going back to your idea of let's use the conducts to get their attention.
100%. And if you can get it, but the key is not to get wrapped up around whatever's being spewed at you, because it really has nothing to do with you. As long as you know the rules and you're standing at the right place and you know all that other, you're doing the things that you need to do. It has nothing to do with you. It's their issue, and we have ways to de-escalate those issues, or we have tools that we can use, right?
Okay. Nick, what do you do when Corrigan's yelling at you, begging you to be better, or you're too good for this?
The first thing and a way to de-escalate, right, is conversate with the coach, but don't be standing face to face with him. Stand off on a 45 and try to talk with him without making direct eye contact. Those are two ways I try to do that. But going off of what Mark said too, right? That's where the conducts is there to help us de-escalate and also bring that down without having to make a very impactful point on the game.
Thank you for that. Anyone else's perspective? I'm trying to do better at this. Today, I turned to number 18 from the midline after a faceoff and just yelled at him while he was in the attack box. Not my best moment, and I need to do better at this. But it's like given that opportunity, it's like I think about it and it's like, don't let him get to you. And I was like, I've heard enough of this kid. I didn't conduct him, but I need to do better at this myself. This is something that I need to, that I'm constantly working on, is not being as reactive.
Was that the Marion? Was that guy on Marion?
No, it's Northland.
Okay,
I mean,
because Marion's
Northland-
got a ref, and I ended up yelling at him a couple of games ago.
I think Randy yelled at the Northland bench too.
That's
Teamwork,
probably Ruger or Rutger.
teamwork. All right, my friends, going back. Okay, so tonight, here's what we got. I wanted to review rule changes on the survey. I'm going to give you the rule. The box is now 5 yards on each side of the center line. If they have a center line in the response in the survey, tell me what the penalty is if a player enters the field of play without using the sub box. And then be prepared to let me know who's, let's see, Peter's gonna share. Peter, the pressure's on you, my friend. What's the rule for a player entering the field out of the sub box?
I'm not sure.
Okay, who can help? Who can help? Come on, we're on a crew. Peter comes to you. You're the crew chief, and he says, that kid entered the box to the sub box, and we can correct it because it's not the second whistle after a foul. What do we got? What do we do?
It's a technical foul, so if they have the ball, they lose it. If they don't have the ball, it's a 30-second penalty.
Can the players
Or did I say that
substitute?
backwards? Maybe I said that backwards.
Go ahead, Randy, clarify. I think we know what you meant.
Yeah, so if you have the ball and you commit a technical foul, you lose the ball, right? And an illegal substitution is a technical foul. So if the other team has the ball and you do an illegal substitution, then it's flag down, slow whistle, 30-second technical foul if they don't score.
What if they illegally substitute through not using the sub box and they have too many men? Does it add up, or do you call it as soon as, what do we do?
Now you put me on the spot.
I know, it's like, I've never had this. I'm messing with you, Randy. So,
Well,
in
again,
the
it's still a
survey, go
technical
ahead.
foul. So if you have a legal substitution and too many men, that's two flags. No more slow play. You got two fouls, 2 flags, and you stop and assess both penalties, I would assume. I could be wrong.
Okay.
That doesn't happen that often, particularly when you're 2 men and don't see that illegal substitution that often.
Opinions, perspectives, share, help.
What rule are we invoking when we say too many men? That sounds hockey-like to me.
Illegal substitution.
Ah, that's what I would call it as well.
So you have an illegal substitution that didn't come in through the sub box, and then they have too many men, and then the player goes offsides. But then they say, go ahead, you're legal, and then another player goes offsides. No, I'm messing with you guys. But
You're just calling.
Go ahead, Don.
You're just calling one technical foul there. They don't back up for the guy being the 11th player who's also the 7th guy on that side of the field, or the 8th guy that's on defense. They're just doing it.
Okay, so when we have Randy, I agree with Randy's perspective. It's like if you have a player entering the field from not using the sub box, it is a technical foul. And we have, if they're on offense, we can stop play, take the ball away from them. If they're on defense, and it's a flag down, slow whistle. What happens if it's a loose ball?
Yeah, it's a loose ball foul. So the other team gets the ball. You just reset the field and go from there.
Thank you, Don. We have a clarification on shoes. Players must wear shoes, and they've eliminated a lot of the technicalities about they just can't be metal. And I think of it as no golf spikes, and players must wear shoes. There was a bunch of stuff about what constitutes a legal shoe. But it's the rule book says now it's like, oh, lacrosse shoes or lacrosse shoes. What's the penalty for a kid wearing illegal shoes? So the question is, what is the procedure and penalty for a player wearing illegal shoes? And how do we check that? When do we check it?
I'll take a stab at it.
Go ahead, Martin.
I mean, obviously you might notice it during the game, but when you check equipment, you're checking all their equipment with their sticks in between the quarters or when you choose to do it with your partner.
Okay.
So I
And Mark, what are we
believe
checking?
we're checking helmet, mouth guard, inside of gloves, cleats. You can ask them, I think, about groin protection. I stress the word ask. And then obviously the stick as well. And then I believe the rule book says, I think that's an illegal equipment, 1 minute personal foul.
Perspectives, any experience of having a player with illegal shoes? Anybody?
I have never, ever, ever, not once, had a player with illegal shoes, ever.
Okay, so, but Mark, what is the procedure? What is the procedure and penalty difference between an offensive player losing required equipment and a defensive player losing required equipment, such as shoes? If I'm an offensive player and I lose a shoe, what do we do?
We just stop play.
What if I'm a defensive player and the offensive team has possession?
If it's a scoring opportunity, we would let it go, and if it's not, we would stop play. You have to be wearing a shoe is being illegally. If the guy's shoes fall off, stop play. Tell him put his shoe back on.
If it's a defensive player, what do we have?
If it's a defensive player, it's an illegal procedure for playing improperly equipped. He either needs to
That is
retrieve his
correct.
equipment.
It is a flag down, slow whistle.
he
Yeah,
needs
but that's
to
not
leave
what
the
you
field and
said.
retrieve his equipment
I
immediately.
did.
No, that's not what you said. If he's playing the guy and his shoe falls off, yes, he's playing with illegally. But if he's running down the field and his shoe flies off, put your shoe back on. Get back in the
There's a
game.
different. No, it's a flag down, slow whistle. If you're in the,
I don't know
It
if I'm
is.
that good, Steve.
It is.
I'll tell you what, Steve, I'm JMO's side here. If that guy is nowhere near that play,
No, I mean,
damn shoe on.
you're right. And the thing is, it's like when I was visualizing this play, it's in a settled situation in the offensive zone. And so by rule, if we're in a like offensive zone settled situation and a defensive player loses his shoe or required equipment, it is a flag down, slow whistle. And everybody's gonna be like, what?
It's like the same precedent though, as if a guy breaks his stick and he drops it, is he throwing it?
The thing is, if you know the rule on defense and you stop it, then you could be gaining an advantage. So I kick off my shoe and my defensive player and my coaches told me, it's like, hey, these officials will stop play. So I kick off my shoe in a settled situation, say we're short a man because of poor substitution, then I'm going to stop play and then get everybody back out there. So it's flag down, slow whistle. It's only happened once at all my games.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah,
going off of Christian's throwing the stick thing,
go ahead, Nick.
on Saturday, I had that where a short stick midi behind X was playing an attackman. And he broke his stick, realized it after the offensive player had separated from him. He took his stick and he safely threw it out of the play and ran off the field because he didn't want to make contact with a defensive player and be called for illegal procedure. So that was a pretty
Wow.
IQ play by that kid,
That's
but he safely threw it to the ground outside of the play. So it can
Wow.
happen.
Where was this?
Saturday down at the Dome.
Wow, good for him.
He's talking about D1 lacrosse. He's trying to.
Oh,
No,
Don had to
no,
bring it
no.
up.
Was that GLL down at the Dome? Well,
Come
what's
on,
going
guys, be serious. Come on. I'm just saying it was a very heads up play by that kid.
All right, one of the rule differences, rule change for this year is goalkeeper and his required equipment. There's a difference when he is in or out of the crease. In the crease, play a stop if he loses required equipment. Out of the crease, he is a field player. Therefore, if a goalie is trying to, he has 4 seconds to clear the ball. If he's out of the crease and he is checked and his stick breaks, now this year, he is considered a field player and cannot participate in the play without a stick. And the stick must come, he must like fulfill the requirements to gain a stick from the sideline. But if he's in the crease, then we have a different situation. So the question then becomes, what's my question? What shall happen if the goalkeeper is out of the crease and his stick breaks? May he resume his position in the crease without a cross? What do you think?
No,
Why not?
he is not a properly equipped player.
So what if a defensive player jumps in?
In high school, they are not allowed to jump into the crease.
Right.
play
they're not allowed
goalie.
to jump. Right. So what then, I think what, to the next point, we need to remember that's like the goalie must have a stick, a chest protector, a throat protector, a cup, and must be in with the stick with the bigger head. So if he breaks it and he's outside of the crease, he's a field player. Questions, comments, concerns?
Steve, part of the intention of that too, right, was some teams would have their goalie purposely drop his stick outside so there'd be an immediate whistle and they just get a free reset, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any team in our state that did it, but that was the intention behind it, correct?
Yep, so he's a field player. One of the things that Randy and I were talking about, what if he's a field player and then shoots the ball like in an attempt to clear and then his head falls off? But that was just a ridiculous.
So you saying that if a goalie steps out of the crease is a field player, and then during the play, for some reason or another, becomes an improperly equipped goalie. His neck protector falls off or whatever, right? He can't run back into the crease, where then we would stop play because of an improperly equipped goalie. Is that what we're saying here?
The
That is what-
equipment's
yeah,
only your
that-
broken
that-
stick, isn't it?
Even if they did to the neck guard the whole 9 yards, because they were already out of the crease, from what I understood from the rule change was they are considered a field player, period, once they're outside their crease.
Right,
So
but if he
any of
steps
their
back
equipment-
and
Well, hold
he
on.
goes back in
So
the
if any of their
crease,
equipment is not to what we know to be a standard, they have got to leave the field once they're outside of that crease.
Because he can't participate without a stick.
but he can participate without a neck protector
He
as a field
could,
player.
but if he doesn't have a stick, he's still SOL. He's got to go over and get the stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mark, if he becomes improperly equipped as a goalie by virtue of him choosing to become a field player, he cannot regain the crease privileges of the goalie until he is a properly equipped goalie. If he doesn't break anything, he can go back in the crease and regain his privileges.
Well, sure, yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
It's different. I
A
mean,
weird situation.
yeah.
Good God, I
he's
hope that
out
never happens to me.
and then breaks his stick. I
You
had a
know, it's-
goalie that was out and his head broke off. And then what do? Like this year, now he's considered a field player. Last year, we stopped playing because he was still afforded the privileges of a goalkeeper. So then complete your survey question. And then next, eye shade. I was like the king of eye shade police.
That might be the understatement of this training.
Yeah, I mean,
Session.
it's like, okay, so we're a 1 inch wide, 1 inch long stroke, single stroke. You can't be down, it can't. And I was at the end of the year, it's like, you're the first person that's ever said that. And it was just like, ay.
I wish they would just say you can't wear it. Then that would be the best rule change ever.
See, Randy, I've been doing this so long that I was like, this came about because of gang issues in California in the early 90s. And so kids were using eye black to write their gang affiliations on their faces during basketball. And so that's why the NFHS came up with this 1 inch wide, 1 inch long, no messages in it. But we, as a group of officials, are not very vigilant about it. And I know there's lots of influences in football. It's like they see the NFL. In lacrosse, we see college players do it. And so from one game to the next, let's strive to be consistent, 1 inch wide and a single 1 inch stroke.
Steve, can I add on to that,
Sure, please.
Guys, the coach from Eastside, I believe, up in Madison at their coaches meeting, he made a very good point. He goes, I don't have an issue if you guys want to enforce this rule, but can you guys please be consistent and enforce it on day one and be consistent with everybody across the state doing it? So, first of all, that's a very fair ask of him, and I think he's right. So that's a challenge to us. It's a simple task we can all be successful at this year, is emphasizing that one. So if you see a kid with excessive eye black, tell the kid he's got to remove it immediately. If he comes back on, it's a flag. And hopefully we don't have to deal with this by week 2. But that is something that the coaches make a good point of, like, okay, we're being told to do this on the training. And sometimes when you get in the situation to actually make that call or that adjudication, we back off until we're with somebody that has the courage to call that, or we finally do call it. So guys, enforce this rule. Let's show them that we're all on the same page to start the year. And it's an easy one we can all win on.
Right. I mean, and it's not a rule change. It's been in the book since like 1993. And so it's just, as you're walking by and watching warm-ups, see who's legally equipped. And then you ask coach, are all of your players legally and properly equipped? Yes. Well, number 21 has Ultimate Warrior eye black. It's like, yeah, so, and people get upset. So it takes all of us, because if one allows it, then if you choose to allow it, then you're the asshole.
So
Come on,
Steve,
let's be consistent.
is that the same as illegal equipment then? 1 minute penalty?
I try to prevent it before the game. Like, take it off or you're not going to play.
Yeah. But like, you know, you say that, you try your best, someone runs on the field, you see it, that's what the call is then, as if it were any other piece of illegal equipment?
I would tell that kid immediately leave the field, immediately. And if he comes back on with it, then it's a flag. And then you go over to the coach and say, I just gave your kid a warning after this. I thought you said you had this covered.
I'd wait till they get the ball, and then I'd give the other team the ball and send them off.
Just do a conduct.
You only have to do that. You only have to do that one time, and the coach is going to make sure no one's got it because you don't want to lose the ball. That's just me personally.
Other opinions, other ideas on how to handle this situation? It's similar to a mouthpiece. You know, our kids have to have mouthpieces, and we each have different ways of kind of making sure that mouthpieces are in.
The interpretations in the book don't call for the technical foul. The interpretations in the rule book call for the assessment of the 1 minute and our penalty for illegal equipment. I understand the book's situations and rulings versus kind of real life sometimes, and I don't think anybody's would complain if you turn the ball over and sent the kid off to change his eye black as well. But that's as far as what the book says, situation 110(1)(e) calls for that 1 minute NR.
So it has teeth. You know, sorry, coach, your player is illegally equipped with his eye black. Field markings, there must be a solid line through the middle of the field. There must be solid lines on the inlines of the field. If you show up to a field, how long do they have to fix it? And what is the penalty? On your survey, please complete. I remember years ago in Middleton, it was just like they didn't have a solid line. So if you enforced it, the coach was like, oh, okay, I know we're not going to get the ball.
Illegal procedure?
Yeah, Peter, tell me more. What do you got? How are you going to start the game?
Well, it's,
You going to have a face off?
good question. No.
What sucks about that rule, what sucks about
Give it
that
to the
rule
other
in
team.
particular, up here in the Bay Valley, up here in the Bay Valley, there are a couple of teams or a couple of fields that the athletic director, whatever, they don't want the line halfway through because football is more important than lacrosse. But basically, you're saying every home game, you're always going to lose the ball on a team that has no control over that. That's where
Right.
that's where I struggle with some of this.
I think historically, that's exactly has been the attitude, right? We're just glad they're playing lacrosse on the stadium. And we're not looking to do that. I think, Steve, this is like a Nick Cohn decision, right? Like, how are we going to call this as a group? Are we going to enforce it or are we not going to enforce it? Are we going to do the thing at TOSA where those weird old lines and we kind of squint our eyes and go, okay, we'll take the face off here? Or if there's a line, are we going to call it? And there's not a line, we're not going to call it. I think that's a WILOA call.
Can't the teams request a waiver and say the school won't allow us to paint a line through the middle of the mascot or whatever? I think that's what was done years ago.
Well, I'll say this, KM used to go out every game before the start of the game. Mark, you remember this? Nick, you probably remember this. Anybody who did a KM game, and they would take a bar of soap and they would rub it across that field to have that center line. And I mean, I didn't care if it wasn't the same white as the football markings as long as it was there.
Correct. That'll wash off with the next rain or whatever.
Right.
But, that's what they can do. I know there used to be waivers, but I don't know where those have gone and whatever in the later days here.
I think that as we move towards the WIA sanctioning, right now, the rule is this: they must have a center line. And the thing is, if they don't, then there are temporary solutions. All it says, we have to start the game with a center line. And so if they don't have it, you let the coach know during your pregame walk around, you don't have a center line. Are you aware that if you do not have a center line marking, then you're going to turn the ball over? We're going to start the game with the other team having the ball.
So do you carry around your large bar of ivory soap? And
It's not my responsibility. It's the home team's responsibility.
Right. Nobody show up on the field with a can of, erasable paint. That's not your
Right.
job. You just point it out to the coach and they have up until that start of that game to correct that error. And if they don't, do what you know you're supposed to do. Give it ball to the other team.
So that's how, so that's the ruling. That's what we're gonna do, because, we've always been super lenient on that
Yes, we have.
historically. So if we're gonna call that, then
Let's be consistent.
let's
I mean,
make that
it's
decision.
it's a rule change and it must be like this. And so, going back to something that I learned from Sid years ago, it's like, if we don't call this, then why should we call offsides? It's in the book. It's like, I don't, that's okay. Let's not call offsides because, I really don't like it.
So we'll treat this just like the IBLAT. Everybody's gonna do it the first week.
Go ahead, Scott.
It's a very simple thing. Like the field needs to be in order. Like that includes full sidelines, full end lines. Like these teams are putting in multi-million-dollar turf fields. If they elect not to put the lines in there in full, then they need to do something else to line it properly. Like we shouldn't have to officiate a game and try to impute where the end line is. We shouldn't have to officiate a game and be facing off 5 yards from one wing line, which is unsafe to the face-off guys because the school chose not to. They can get chalk from the baseball field for all I care, which will be gone by the end of the game. But they should have solid boundary lines and they should have a solid midfield line.
I think a communication should go out to the coaches here on this. Because
we covered it in the Milwaukee area coaches meeting.
And I covered it in my coaches meeting with full attendance.
Yep. So the coaches know.
But to Mark's
And
point,
In Minnesota,
hold on, to Mark's point though, I think we should send it out as one more. Here's the rule, guys. How we're gonna call it.
Yeah, I think that's really important because this is not, yeah, it's in the book, but it's been in the book for a long time. And we've always kind of looked the other way on this particular field marking. And we're not talking about end lines and wing lines. We're talking about the center line. And if
Yep, I think we lost him.
Mark, are you there?
He was saying, buddy.
So are we also talking about the end lines too? Because I know there's several up in the Bay Valley that the end lines go through the logos in the end zones.
It has to be solid.
Mm-hmm. And see the crazy thing about the whole rule, it's just to start the game. So
That's what I was just
apparently
gonna
we
say.
don't
All you
know
have
the
to do is
difference
start the
between the
game with
start of the game and the end of the game.
Right. So it doesn't have to be permanent. It could be temporary. And if they choose to, like, if they have, like Scott said, baseball chalk, now they have that spray. That is one way to address the issue.
put a tape center line through a logo. It's going to come off in 2 face-offs, but at that point, it doesn't matter. You just have to start your game legal. However, whatever happens in the game, it doesn't matter after that.
And you might have an opposing coach who says he doesn't want the ball to start. I had that with Arrowhead in Middleton a couple years ago, and Middleton had those crazy numbers on their uniforms without the contrasting color, and the Arrowhead coach didn't want the ball to start the game. So you might run into that also. So if they refuse it, then just go with a face-off.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that. It's like, what happens if the coach
think,
doesn't want the penalty?
Don, didn't I work that game with you? And we're like, you sure?
Yeah, because that was yep, because that was what's his name who just left Arrowhead. Yeah, it was really
Schweitzer.
weird because
Yeah.
Schweitzer, and they were the underdog, and he didn't want the ball to start. So we thought that was odd.
Yeah, so point it out to the coaches, and if they say no, we just want to face off, I'd say go with it.
Does the opposing coach have that choice of doing that?
He can
No,
refuse the
the
ball
rule.
to start the game.
Sure.
Wow, Schweitzer's doing something different. So,
No, actually, it was Sanford who didn't want the ball. He wanted the face off.
Okay.
Oh, it's the other way. Okay.
Let's get back.
all right, rule change, stick mesh. no gaps larger than 1.68 inches or the size of a golf ball. Nowhere in the mechanics manual does it say that we must now carry a golf ball. Kyle, more of our accoutrement, as you so eloquently pointed out years ago. We have to not carry a golf ball. For those of you that have modified your flags and put a golf ball in, see if your flag will fit through the gaps and that. And the rationale is that they don't want there's new mesh and lacing techniques that allow gaps, so the players this cross will pass a stick inspection, but is illegal. So, Kyle, you were going to say? Or are you good?
No, I was just thanking you for remembering that particular nugget from our years past. I was going to say I'm going to start carrying a 6 iron with me. Maybe get a little work in and the halftime.
Yeah, the new stringing method Steve's talking about is at the bottom of the head. They weren't stringing the mesh all the way down to the bottom. It was stringing down, so there was like that inch and a half gap, formed like a shelf for the ball. Instead of the stop being the shelf, it had a new shelf. So that's where this came into play and where the rule had to be made.
I saw a clear head today with like transparent mesh. It was weird. And I was like, what the heck is that? So, with an orange ball in it. I'm glad the ball was orange so I could see it. All right. Comments, questions, concerns about any of the new rules? So I wanted to spend a little time on how we see fouls. There has been some discussion on the difference between technical fouls and personal fouls, but I was just like, okay, what do we do? How do we see fouls? And so, and then what do we do when we have fouls? So before we watch, I have 2 videos that WILOA has produced about field division and how to see fouls. I have some rules, kind of like rules questions, because it was an idea of please review some test questions or test type questions. And I came up with some situations that I wanted to review before we started this week. And these are things that happened in my games, and there was some discussion with the group that I turned to ask for help. And they are all listed in our survey. So if we get a look at the survey, this happened between it was a college game, so it was Carroll versus Edgewood. And let's talk about what we have. Number 10 of Team A has possession of the ball, and number 30 of Team B holds number 10. There's a flag down, slow whistle as Team A is in possession. Number 10 then verbally taunts number 30 during a live ball. The official then stops play. What is the penalty to be adjudicated? Who is awarded the ball and why? So again, number 10 has possession of the ball. Number 30 of Team B holds. Team B is the defense. Holds number 10. There's a flag down, slow whistle as Team A is in possession. Number 10 during the live ball with possession, then verbally taunts number 30 during the live ball. The official stops play. What is the penalty to be adjudicated? Who is awarded the ball and why? Who feels confident in their rules knowledge? I don't want to call on anybody. It's like, oh, shoot, what do we got? Dylan, you popped up. Were you going to say something? What do you got, Dylan?
Sorry, I'm having audio problems. I'm just going to.
Oh, man, you're lucky. Any volunteers? Volunteers?
Steve, if I think I have the scenario correct, the flag down on the defensive team for the hold, and there is a live ball taunt by the offensive player on the slow whistle flag down, correct?
Yep.
I would kill the play immediately for an offensive technical violation, and then I would administer the penalty. Team A still keeps the ball to start.
Why?
Because they're in possession of the ball and they had the technical violation. Now, again, there's also severity of that conduct or that taunt, right? So that could even be a penalty at some point. There's a million scenarios off of this.
Right.
But if we're just saying he just
It was
talking
like
some
conduct
crap,
penalty. Yeah, thank you. It was
Yeah.
a conduct penalty, not a
Yep.
opinions. What do we got?
I concur with Nick's assessment. If it's a conduct, if the taunt is just worthy of just a conduct foul, then I agree with his scenario. If it's more than that and it's going to be a sportsmanlike conduct, then we have a different story.
Tell us, what would the different story be, Kyle?
Well, let me work that out. Let's see.
So I hold you.
Yep.
And then you do something, and then after you are held, you do something beyond conduct that becomes a misconduct.
Worthy of, let's say, a 1 minute
1
unsportsmanlike.
minute unsportsmanlike conduct, yeah.
Um,
How's that going to change the situation?
Are we both serving time?
Lifeline? You need a lifeline.
I think I do.
Help?
Yes,
Call it?
simultaneous.
Don says simultaneous. Scott, you took yourself off mute. What do you got?
I was just gonna say, let's approach it from what's the same. So you have an offensive foul either way. That's the second O in goodies. So the flag down slow whistle is over. That's the first part of this. That play is dead. Now, if it's still a conduct, like the first situation, as Nick Cohn said, it's done. Like the advantage is over, the continuation is over, that's done. If it's time serving, as Don just said, they're simultaneous live ball fouls. If you're giving them unsportsmanlike conduct, it's a minute non-releasable. You're going to adjudicate possession based on who has the most time to serve. So the team that committed the hold is going to get the ball.
Questions of clarification for the
agree.
opinions of Kyle and Don and Nick?
Hey,
Guys,
Steve, I agree
go
with
ahead,
everything
Chris.
that was just said.
Okay.
Let's
What
just stay
question?
with that standard conduct. Don't you go to the toggle switch then, and then B would get the ball?
And
No, the standard conduct.
if we have a conduct foul, Chris, let me make sure I'm understanding. You are asking if A just committed a conduct foul, a technical foul during a live ball. Is that correct?
Correct. Simultaneous.
Okay, so then what happens whenever you have a flag down slow whistle and we have a live ball and the team in possession only commits technical fouls?
Yep.
The technical fouls by the team in possession are ignored.
Okay, so
Am
they retain the ball.
So they're going to retain the ball.
Got it.
Use
And
like
the-
a loose push, for example, remove the conduct and think of it in the same way. So you've got red is holding white, flag down, slow whistle, and then say the ball becomes loose and white pushes red. So that's going to kill it. It's a technical violation, but it's not a time serving penalty. Similar.
Yeah,
use of a
this
different
is
foul.
one that like coaches are going to be like, wait, what happened? They fouled also. And a lot of coaches don't know that technical fouls by the offense or the team in possession results in the stoppage, and then they keep the ball.
Scott said the magic word before, goodies.
Goodies. Scott, can you please clarify the acronym goodies for those that don't know?
Yeah, so I probably won't remember all of them, but when there's a flag down slow whistle, there is a certain set of situations that will terminate the slow whistle, which means blow your whistle. The first is a goal. The second is the ball out of bounds. The third, and this is the one we're discussing, is an offensive foul. They no longer get to retain the advantage of that possession. D, I think, it's D. I don't know. I is injury. E is end of
Defensive
period.
foul.
D is
Yeah,
a
so
second.
Yeah, but they
Second foul,
but they
yeah.
changed that. They changed that because if it's scoring is imminent, so that's obscure. That's yes, second defensive foul ends it unless scoring is imminent. I is injury, E is expiration of period, and S is I don't know, special situations, anything outside of the first six. So those are all the situations where you will blow your whistle to end the flag down slow whistle situation.
Questions, comments, concerns? How can we clarify? Thank you, Scott.
Absolutely.
Next question. During a face-off and the ball is loose, number 15 of Team A, Afogo, is attempting to gain control of the loose ball when number 22, a wing player from Team B, pushes number 15 from the rear. What is the penalty, if any? Who is awarded the ball and why? So we have a player engaged in trying to play the ball, trying to gain control after a faceoff, and a wing player contacts him.
Loose ball push, going the other way,
Play on.
play on.
So we have loose ball push, we have a play on. Any other
Depending
ideas?
on, so obviously the
Christian,
way the
talk.
wording is, it says during a face-off and the ball is loose. If you've got two face-off players and they're actively playing the ball on the face-off, a wing player, no wing players of either team can hit any of the face-off players while the ball is still within, kind of while they're still battling. You can't just, even if it's a legal check from the side or in the front, you cannot hit the face-off guy. And then if the ball starts rolling away, it just becomes a loose ball. Then you kind of would play it similarly, play on, loose ball push.
Christian, what I heard was they're actively playing the ball. Is there a size or an area that you're looking at to define the two face-off players engaged in the face-off?
So I look at the line as you kind of look at the line and kind of the footprint of the players. They're within about, let's just say, a 2.5 by 2.5 foot box on each side. As the ball remains basically on the center line or wherever you placed it, and whether the players are spinning around from side to front and back, whatever they're doing, if that ball remains in that same spot and has not popped out, there should be no contact to those players.
Ideas, opinions, perspectives. Different opinions. So would it be fair to say the consensus is that we have a loose ball foul, and the team that was offended, in this case, number 15, Team A, is going to get the ball? Is that what I'm understanding? Christian, yes, no?
Yes.
Differences of opinion. Does anybody have a personal foul? If so, why? We're all good. Difference. During a face-off, the ball is in possession of number 15 of Team A, this is a Fogo, and has not lifted his head when number 22, a wing player from Team B, checks number 15 from the rear. What is the penalty, if any? Who's awarded the ball and why? So, difference, we have a loose ball. Now we have a player in possession. the player still hasn't lifted his head, that is often a criteria for defenseless player. What do we have?
Well, it's not, it's just
Severity.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, if you're gonna check and then you go back for defensive players. If it's truly is a point, he's got possession, he's pushed with possession, and it's so much matter that barrier that's kind of it's hard to make my call, at least in that description.
So in this, Randy, is it fair, like, am I understanding that I heard the word severity. So you could have a push or you could have an illegal body check. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You could have an unnecessary roughness as well.
Okay. Other ideas?
Steve,
In a
we had
three-man
this
system,
today.
go ahead. Go
We
ahead,
had
Randy.
this today in a face-off, right? Guy was trying to get to it, didn't have control of it, got pushed from behind. All we had was a push, loose ball, boom, going the other way. It's truly what happens in that incident.
And I actually pointed the right way.
Well, it took you 2 times to do it, but yeah, you got it right away.
Hey, I got 1 out of 3 right. If I was a baseball player, I'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Peter, what do
Steve,
you got?
why isn't this just a play on? I mean, you're checking from the rear. Is that,
The player's in possession, Peter.
okay, you can't check the ball out,
He's-
you know?
He's also defenseless. His head's down. And it's from the rear.
So if we have a player in possession of the ball and his head is down, he's considered defenseless. And so then it becomes like, what I heard was from the group is, then it becomes an issue of severity. If there's a push from behind, we could call a push. If the kid runs through him, it could be illegal body check, it could be unnecessary roughness, it could be a bunch of different things.
The rule book.
What do you got, Kyle?
The rule book 5.3 illegal body check. There's a special shaded new verbiage for this year, which talks about the body checking of an opponent while still crouched on the ground for a face-off falls under illegal body check. Again, severity could override that if it was truly a brutal
Got
hit.
it,
You could have
thanks.
something else, but perhaps this question is going for some of that shaded the shaded part is or while crouched for a face-off.
Right,
And
and
this-
so the difference is, it's like, okay, what happens during a loose ball and versus a player in possession who is defenseless? And so that was my intent.
Actually, actually, Steve, no, that's a good point, because you know what? The reason why we went with the push was because they were 8 feet away from the actual face-off spot.
Yeah. I
It
mean, the ball
wasn't-
was in the vicinity and the player, they were still actively engaged, and I judged it to be a push because it wasn't anything else.
Is there anything that you need to consider? Back to earlier when they were saying the 2.5 foot box when the ball's still there versus somebody clamps and goes to rake it and loses it and it's starting to head towards the wingers and the 2 face-off guys still have their heads down playing the ball before the wingers get there.
Chris, that's a great question. And that's why I was asking Christian about what criteria, because I've heard different things and I'm interested to learn more about the opinion of what other people have heard. You know, because I've heard phrases like actively engaged in the face-off or within the vicinity or within like the 5 foot circle, or if they're still like on the initial action of the face-off. So those are things that I've heard, and I'm wondering what other people have heard.
Steve,
Anyone?
I would, yeah,
Go ahead,
so,
Scott.
I mean, Steve, a lot of the things you just said, none of that's written in the rule book, right? So we
Right.
can't be like, well, he was within 5 feet of the point of the ball, or the vicinity. That's a specifically vague term,
Mhm.
right? So all we really have to go with is what's in the rule book. So if the player is still engaged in the initial act of facing off and hasn't had a chance to stand up and become aware of his surroundings, he's probably defenseless. So if he's in the process of looking up to find out where the opponents are or his teammates and he gets clocked, he's unaware of his surroundings, and we have an obligation to protect him. So, I mean, that may be very subjective, but err on the side of protecting a guy that was just looking at the ground trying to dig a ball off the grass. And if he doesn't actually know where contact may be coming from and he gets hit hard, protect him. And if I could add one more thing that I think is relevant here. So there are very few times in the rule book that I know the actual terminology, but the first few words of the description of unnecessary roughness I find to be key: an excessively violent infraction of the rules against pushing or holding. So if what seems to be a push is, a little more than a push, there's no problem upgrading that to an unnecessary roughness foul.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On our survey, when is contact to the helmet a foul? When is it not a foul? What are the criteria that you use to differentiate between the two? And Randy brought up a good point today, which is because of the new requirements for having the cardiac pad there, sometimes that sounds like a helmet. So it's like, a lot of times I was like, oh, that sounded like a helmet, but now it could be the chest. So what is the difference between like contact to the head, when it is a brush, when is it not a brush? What do you got? When is contact to the helmet a foul? What language are you looking for? What actions are you looking for? I was really thinking about this today on the way home. It was like, why didn't I call that helmet contact a foul, but I called this other one a contact foul? So help me. Give me your experience. Give me your perspective. Let's see, on my screen, I have Scott, Jeremy, and Mitch. Ideas and opinions. When is it a foul? Contact to the head a foul and not a foul? What, Scott, help me out.
Are you
Not
talking?
Saunders. I'm sorry, Scott Wendels. I'm sorry, Scott Saunders. Are you there, Scott Wendels?
I'm here.
Okay, what do you got? How do you differentiate?
When it's
Share your
contact,
perspective, please.
when it's intentional to the helmet, I would consider that a foul. When it's inadvertent, I'd say it's not a foul, but that's more of how I differentiate would be the intent.
Okay. What if intent isn't in the rule book? Is there a direction you're looking for, or is it like what the player's actions are? It's like, I'm trying to cut over, Scott Saunders has been a big help to me to understand. It's like the purpose of a long stick. It's like how long sticks work. And so, and he helped me understand. It's like, if I have a 6-foot pole, these are the things that I can do, to use leverage, to properly play defense. So I'm wondering, what does intent mean?
I guess intent is like, if they're intentionally doing it, I guess I mean,
Hard. It's okay.
like I said, if it, I guess.
Is there language from the rule book that maybe you could like intent that maybe we could use in explaining to a coach or help with our differentiation?
That's a good question. You got me, now you're stumping me. All right.
John DeGreesh told me years
Normal
ago, it's like,
follow-through.
is it a blow or a strike? So that might be something to consider. Jeremy, how do you differentiate between the two?
I guess I would say if it's all based on severity of the impact, you're gonna hear it. So I mean, and if it causes an advantage, definitely 100%. But if it's, I mean, the fans are gonna be all up in arms to start with, and no matter what. So, but if it's a low severity, just barely touched him, but if his head rocks back, you're throwing the flag.
Okay. Ideas, opinions, help us out. Is there a language from the rule book that helps? Don,
Hey,
you put
Steve,
yourself on
can
mute.
you
Go
hear
ahead.
me?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think the term strike or blow is important in this.
Okay.
Does this become, so this happens all the time, right? You have an attackman who decides to take on 3 poles, and he effectively hits his head, runs into the sticks of the long poles, right? That's contact to the head, but I don't know if there's anybody on this call who would ever call that. Unless you're from Indiana, right? We remember that game we had last year. But I think the term strike or blow is important in this conversation.
Don, you took yourself on mute. Do you have a perspective to share?
Like Mark said, the striker blows the first part, and then initiating the contact. The rulebook says you shall not initiate contact to the ruler head with the cross or with any part of the body. Following through with contact with that. So if you have your ride and you're at the shoulder or the chest, and you ride up and you follow through with a strike, which most likely will be a cross check or looking like a punching motion that goes to the head. Those would be the ones you look at, but obviously you have to have the striker blow instead of just a brush or incidental contact. In college, we're looking for direct contact is one way that would be initiated to the head or neck area.
My favorite page every year in the rule book, and this year it's on page 63, is 5.7.1. Contact itself does not constitute a foul. The contact shall be a definite blow or strike. Otherwise, it is considered a brush. That's how you have to adjudicate it, period. If you think it's a slash, it's a slash. If you don't think it's a slash, you pass. And we had that today, Steve. We had a couple of guys brushing teeth, right? Up and down the grill. Then we had that lumberjack that came over the top with a 2-hand tomahawk, which is automatically 2 minutes. I mean, they weren't hard to just disseminate.
One of the things that I heard from a coach was like, it can't be head contact on a poke check, because he was teaching his poles to jab the kids in the face. And it was just like, that can't be head contact, because it's not a blower. It's not a striker blow.
There is a rule where if you repeatedly poke a kid in the face, it could be a legal procedure. But if you're striking or blowing the kid, then that'd be a slash. So it is under a legal procedure if you repeatedly poke check a kid in the face.
Right. I mean, but it was a
Or it's a
poke check,
technical.
and he was like, it can't be a slash because it's a poke check. It was like, it's two. And he was like, this is crazy. So I don't know. Now, each of you are more experienced than first-year officials. There's 1 or 2 of you that might be a first-year official. You might be the crew chief with a less experienced official. We talked about pre-games last week. How would you teach a first-year official the difference between contact that is adjudged to be a brush and one that is a foul? I've heard references to direction. I've heard blows or strikes. How could you help a first-year guy? It's the first time out, and there's been a couple of brushes that you've adjudged, and now it's his turn, and or your partner threw a flag on a head contact foul that was a brush that maybe you didn't agree with. How do you coach them through it? How do you instruct? What are the criteria you're looking for? Ron, Paul K, and Mike Jager.
Somebody
Mike?
told me once that if they weren't wearing a mask or if they weren't wearing a helmet, would it have caused the damage? AKA sometimes when there's a direction like what you're talking about and they go to lift a stick and they just brush the front of the mask. If the mask or the helmet wasn't there, it probably wouldn't have caused any damage. It wouldn't have hit anything. It would have caused damage.
Okay.
I'd agree
Ron?
with that. Also, intent.
Okay.
Are they swinging up and around the head, or are they swinging towards the stick and the stick moves?
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also say the best way to learn is to see and then teach. You're going to make mistakes and then you correct them, because I'm more visual than paper learned.
Thank you for that. And then finally, how do you differentiate between contact to the head that is locked versus not locked? Because the rule book says two different things. And Max Lord and I went around about this like last year. How do we differentiate? Because intent is not in the rule book. And one part of the book says contact to the head is locked. And then it was like, then it's not locked. How do you differentiate? In college this year, they went to incidental, direct and like malicious or violent is 1, 2, or 3 minutes.
Excessive.
Excessive. Okay, thank you, Nick.
Steve, this like the NFHS book tells you when a penalty is non-releasable.
Okay.
There's always confusion about this. The collegiate rule book, which we're not adjudicating from this training, gives you the discretion, right, to administer a non-releasable or a releasable foul for personal fouls, all of them. The NFHS rule book tells you when fouls are non-releasable. Unsportsmanlike conduct, it tells you which ones are non-releasable and which ones are not. Contact to the head and neck, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, ejection, non-releasable fouls. Targeting, 3-year ejection, non-releasable fouls. So the rule book tells you when to use non-releasable fouls. That is not a discretionary thing. So
So are you saying that contact to the head is going to be 2 minutes, non-releasable?
So that rule is constructed with illegal body checks and cross checks in mind, right? Slashes are still slashes. If you commit a slash to the head, you're adjudicating it as a slash. If you think it's excessive or deliberate, you can escalate the number of minutes of the foul, but you cannot make a routine slash like non-releasable the way the NFHS rule book is constructed, in my opinion.
So are you saying that we should report if there's contact to the head that you don't want to lock in, we report it as a slash?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, so what I heard was slashes that contact the head do not have to be releasable. Is that correct?
I would make the argument based on what is written in the NFHS rulebook that if you are reporting a slash, you can report 1, 2, or 3 minutes. but you
Okay.
cannot report it as non-releasable under contact of the head or neck.
Right, and so with that, and so if you want it to be releasable, you report it as a slash.
Yes.
If you want it to be locked, you do not use the word slash and instead call it something else.
Illegal body check or cross check.
They allow you, if I could just read rule
ahead, Kyle.
5.4, article 2. So this is under the section checks involving the head or neck or a defenseless player. Article 2 says a player shall not initiate an excessive, violent, or uncontrolled slash to the head or neck. So it baked into rule 5.4 for checks to the head and neck is basically the enhanced version of the slash. So, and you guys stop me if you think I'm wrong, but for what Scott's saying, your standard run-of-the-mill 1 minute, maybe 2 minute releasable slashing penalty, you're going to call under rule 5.7 slashing. Your enhanced 2-3 minute locked in slash to the head or neck, you're going to call under rule 5.4 article 2, slash to the head, 2 minutes full time.
That is correct. You beat me to it, Kyle, because I was looking for it myself. So I knew I saw it in there. Yes, a slash can be at least a 2 minute non-releasable foul. It says it right there in the rule book.
I stand corrected.
Kyle, can you
I think
reread
we were
that,
saying the
the
same
enhanced
things.
version again, because it's like, I just want to make sure that we are clear, or we're again striving for consistency, because sometimes there's slashes to the head, and given the context in the game situation, it's like, I don't want to lock them in.
Sure. So rule 5.4, and it's, rule section 4, checks involving head or neck. So article 1 talks about basically your cross check to the head or neck. Article 2 talks about a slash to the head or neck. Article 3 talks about spearing. So the section under article 2, so rule 5.4 article 2, a player shall not initiate an excessive, violent, or uncontrolled slash to the head or neck. And I think we're all saying the same thing. I think if you're calling a slash, and that's what I don't want to paraphrase what Scott was saying, because
I'll clarify then, Kyle. I guess
Yeah,
what
go
I'm
for it,
getting at
man.
then is if you're making a lacrosse play, like you're playing defense and you try to go for an over the head check or like just miss, a regular stick check and you get him in the head, I personally am going to report that as a run of the mill slash 1, maybe 2 minutes releasable foul. If you stop playing lacrosse and you're swinging your stick as a weapon with the sole intent of striking your opponent and your point of contact is the head, I think this 5.4 is what applies there. That's excessive, deliberate, violent, like multi-minute non-releasable foul. I personally, for me, it may not be very well like spelled out in the rule book, but the difference is, are you making a lacrosse play versus have you stopped playing lacrosse and you're just trying to strike your opponent?
For me, is kind of like, I just hear, we go back to the word that's not in the rule book, which is like intent. So it's like, it's like when we do that, and we talked about it in our training, it's like, oh, you know it or you feel it when you see it or hear it.
So Steve, and I know you've said this a few times, but Article 7 of Rule 5.4, a player should not initiate targeting that intentionally takes aim at a player in a defenseless position. So they do have the word
Intentional
intent
there.
in there in a couple of different sections.
Yeah, okay.
So not to blow up your
No,
intentionality.
the thing is, it's like
thing.
my one was about, it's a conversation about the college rule book, so it's my fault. And I think we had this today in our game. It's like, what was the intent of the guy to like get the difference between a 2-minute and 1 minute? But with that, there was a question from when we have this situation, and the questioner gives a situation, and we're looking for opinions on what do we do. The situation is Mitty dodges and drives in. The defense slides over, and there is a scrum of action and contact in a group. A shot is taken on goal. In the process, you hear the hit of a helmet with a stick, but you do not see who did it. There is a flag down, but because it was in a group, you have no clue as to who it was on. How do we adjudicate it? Do you tell the defense that you heard it and someone is going? Or do you pick a player? What do you do? Do we only call things that we have direct knowledge of?
Steve,
is the question.
Steve, I don't think you
Go ahead,
can call
Mark.
sound. I don't think you can call sound. If you don't see it, because here's what happens, right? So the sound of a stick hitting a helmet, whose stick and whose helmet? So you like, so if I stick check you and your stick hits your helmet, or you trip over and you hit your own player's helmet, it makes the same sound. And I don't think that you can call sound. If you see it, you have to call it. I was doing a game a couple of weeks ago, and I was on lead and I was on GLE, and because there was a scoring play happening, and so I was looking at the goal. And out of the back, out of my ear, I hear this smack. And I'm like, that's somebody whacking a helmet, right? But I can't call that. Now I gotta hope my partners have eyes on that. And they did, and we called it, and they called it, and it was great. But you cannot call the sound. I just don't think you can.
Okay. Other opinions and perspectives? Randy, I know that you and I had a situation at Carroll where there was a sound and you weren't sure what happened. And I wasn't sure what happened, but something happened. What do you do?
You got to pass. If you don't see it, you can't call it. I had a game, Don was on the game with me yesterday. I don't know if Eric Dubois is on, where I had the goal because goal was going to be scored. And I heard this crack, like MJ was just saying. And I'm like, and I'm watching the ball go in the net. And I'm like, God, I hope somebody got that sound, because I actually saw the player go rolling by the goal line after the ball was in the net. And we got it, and everything was good. So sound doesn't do anything for you if you don't see it. And which leads me to something we've preached forever and a day. If you are the trail, you got to have eyes on the guy that touched the ball last. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And both Don and Eric both threw a flag, and I was like, thank God. Because, when you see a guy go rolling by you at the goal line, somebody got racked.
Tim, you brought yourself off mute.
Yeah, I just wondered, what was the call? Was it
please.
unnecessary roughness on the late hit or something, Randy?
That one was just contact that had 2 minutes locked, but yeah, otherwise it could have been unnecessary roughness or a slash on that particular one.
Steve, I've
And on
done 17 years of basketball, and what MJ said is exactly right. You can't assume. You have to see it. It'd be a little different if it was a scrum in front of the net and the team with the balls up, 4 or 5 goals with a couple minutes left. They see a stick come down and strike the shooter, and I'd probably err on the side of throwing a flag and coming in. If I'm single side and asking GLE, who do you think that was? Because somebody's got to go just to keep control of the game. But
Okay.
that the only time I'd ever go fishing.
Okay. I think that the like sound, especially now with the different sounding of the chest protectors, we need to be sure, especially in scrums, because things happen. I mean, the other night, Carol, we had a scrum, and everything was legal, but it sounded like helmets. But we had poles contacting players in the chest or making stick checks, and the offensive player smacked himself in the head with his own stick. And it was like, it sounded like a foul, but it wasn't. All right, my friends, we have 5 minutes left. Any other questions, concerns?
Can you go over the sub box, the new sub box for non-college guys who aren't used to
Okay,
it?
sub boxes are now 5 yards on each side of the end line, or each side of the center line. Players must come through it. What else is there, Don? What am I forgetting?
Was that the 45 coaches box?
Oh yeah, the coaches now have a little room to move towards the center line and still be legal. But their in line, like the furthest part, is still the same. And let's try to keep them off the field and not GLE trying to coach their offense.
That only happens in your games.
I was being nice. I asked him please to get back in the box. Don, you posted the link to pay your dues.
Yes, I'll put that up again here.
Okay. Assigners, any other messages?
From the assigners, make sure you get your blocks in. Let me say that again. Get your blocks in. And I'm speaking for all the assigners. Make sure you get your test done. You need to take the high school test, obviously, if you're going to do high school games. And just be available, because things are going to change, this and that. One other thing, if you are going to do a youth game this year, which you really should, just to help out the newbies, all penalties at youth this year are served at full time. Okay, I don't care if it's a trip, I don't care if it's a push, I don't care if it's whatever it is. Youth lacrosse starting this year, all penalties are served at full time, regardless of the scoring and whatnot. The rationale behind it is to instill in the youth players what happens when you put your team down a man or two. So
is that a US lacrosse thing, Randy, or is that Wisconsin?
It's US lacrosse.
Okay.
And to close, a message from our president. Go ahead, Mr. Cohn. What do you got for us?
All right. First and foremost, Steve, thanks for putting these together. You did a great job. Thank you for doing that. Thank you to everybody who showed up for trainings, asked additional questions, contributed. You know, our goal with this, guys, is to try and get us all on the same page. And then we want to go out there and be as consistent as we can possibly be the entire year. And I'm going to steal a philosophy from Mark Howard. He used to do this when he used to coach us, is we don't want to be playing our best lacrosse in March. We want to be playing our best lacrosse in the beginning of June. So with that being said, yes, we want to be doing good lacrosse officiating at the beginning of the year, but we want to be getting better and better so that when we get to the state championships and playoffs, we're officiating our best lacrosse. So keep that in mind. We are going to make mistakes. It is okay. We will have your back. All right. We appreciate you taking your personal time to do this. I know everyone's got families and jobs. With that being said, thank you very much. And I look forward to a healthy season. Take care of your body, please.
Guys, I just want to say thank you for your time and your attention. I have learned a lot about like just the craft that we kind of engage in. I look forward to working with you guys, and that's it. That's all I got. So I'm gonna go have some beans and rice and some tacos, and then that's it.
See.
Thanks, Steve.
Tacos, man.
Thanks for your work, Steve.
All right, take it easy, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace out, Mr. Gasser.
Adios.
Hey, Steve, this is Scott Windows. I have a couple questions.
Okay, yeah, I'll stay on. What's up?
I was at the youth training today,
Mhm.
and I asked when they were going to put the first session on the website, and the presenter said that he has no idea.
Okay, I will, we can reach out to the person that manages our website and follow up with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve, I talked to Jeremy on the way
Okay.
back from Marion. Scott, you might have asked that the
I did.
questioner that I talked
I
to.
was. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we did record them. So if Christian's still on, he should have access to our recordings and be able to put them on the website.
Okay. Okay. And like I said, I just wanted to make sure, because like I said, I'll be the first one. I haven't hardly had any communication from anybody from WILOA, and I've had multiple things. And like I said, this is new to me. Roger from Kimberly is the one who got me into this. He wanted me to officiate high school. To be honest with you, I am very nervous to even think about that. So I was thinking I would want to start at U10, 12 or 14. So, but I haven't got, like I said, I've taken all my rules. I haven't had any on field work except for Rich and I did a scrimmage for the Kimberly and the Appleton U12, U14s Friday at the Oshkosh Dome. So I've reached out to Joe and I haven't heard much from him either. I just want to make sure that I'm on the radar, that that I've paid my dues. I'm just want to just have some direction is more or less what I'm looking for.
Sure.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, the thing is, it's like, I've been in your situation. And if there's anything that anyways, if we want to talk like offline, let me know how I can help you.
Okay.
Because it's like, and one of the things is like, you might have a million questions, but then again, you don't know what you don't know. So we're here.
Right. I appreciate it. Like I said,
Yeah.
this is very informative and hear everybody else's perspective. And like I don't type fast enough to answer the questions sometimes.
It's all right. I just want to get you thinking.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's 8:33. Y'all go have dinner. Tacos for Bettis.
All right. I've had enough Perez for one day.
I know, dude. You're fucking blessed.
All right. Then
you know what?
Christian said that he checked the neck. Okay.
My check didn't reflect the extra baggage that I carried today.
That's true. That baggage was just that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
See ya.
Whoever left, have a good week.
See ya.
Okay, ciao.
Nice.
And